Hi, I'm Ken Moore, and welcome to Local Matters. This last year I had quite an adventure. As many of you know, I ran for office, and in that adventure I talked to a lot of people. I interviewed leaders of the community, and what I'm doing with this show is bringing you what I learned by bringing some of those leaders back to interview me here on TV, and also I'll be bringing in new people that I didn't have a chance to talk to. So we're going to be talking to the people that will be able to tell us about what's going on in the community, what matters here. So today my first guest is one that I did talk to on the campaign trail, Jeff Lorton. Thanks for being here with me.
That's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Jeff is a business owner, Duke Joseph Agency, and tell us a little bit about your business, if you would.
We're a small advertising agency. We do strategic communication, planning, and execution, meaning that we plan things and then we do them. We help companies, particularly here, we focus really a lot on the wine industry, wine and food, and we help those brands tell their story.
Well, Jeff, when I talked to you the first time, what I saw was that you had, through your work, a good perspective on the business community here. Strengths, weaknesses. You did some studying of rural economic development possibilities. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Sure. In 2013, my company was hired for a year-long contract to do economic development work for Yamhill County, and part of that contract was to do research and to recommend strategies that made sense for the county to pursue, because we have limited resources, and so our dollars count and how we spend them. And so we took a look at both nationally and also locally here in Oregon and Washington, what rural communities were doing and what was working, what wasn't working.
Well, what came out of that? What is working here? What isn't working? What do you see as a possibility for us, or possibilities?
Well, I think what's working around the state and also nationally is investment in entrepreneurs, and what I mean by that is not so much giving entrepreneurs money for their businesses, but more creating environments and support for them so that they can flourish. Here in Yamhill County, we don't have a support system for entrepreneurs, and you and I have talked in the past. We talked about Gorge Ventures as kind of a model, something that I thought was really, very successful over the last 7 years, and something that could be, emulated. And I always like to say emulation is a strategy of success.
Very good. So the unique resources we have here, we've got wine industry, we have lots of agriculture, we have entrepreneurs in the form of people on farms are entrepreneurs.
Exactly.
They're raising their kids to learn how to handle situations that come up, and they have to be flexible, they have to be knowledgeable, they have to have a lot of background of information.
Very much so.
So we have some resources, we have agriculture, we have an opportunity, and you happened upon an opportunity you think is very germane to us here, and it's called precision agriculture. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, and it dovetails perfectly for the fact that we are a rural community, and so precision agriculture is essentially agriculture is the last great human endeavor to go from the analog era to the digital era. And so what that means is, computing, micro devices, very precise things, a seeder that plants one seed in an exact spot on a field, and then a month later the farmer's able to come back and touch that seed with a fertilizer, just that seed and nothing else around it. So it is what it sounds like, precision agriculture. It's around automation. It's ultimately about using less resources and being more sustainable, both environmentally sustainable, but also being economically sustainable. Farmers have to do more with less. They got to grow more food. The world wants more food, but they have to do it. They can't do it the way their parents did. They have to do it in a much more precise manner because there's a lot of constraints around sustainability and traceability also.
Applying water to the field.
Sure.
How would precision agriculture affect that?
Well, there are technologies called variable rate application. and they're both used in planting, they're used in fertilizing, and they're also putting nutrients in, and then they're also used in irrigation. And these are fairly new technologies that have kind of applied to larger farms in the past, but now rapidly that technology is being made available to smaller or medium-sized farms, and eventually it'll be available to the smallest farm.
So one side of the field is dry, one side of the field is wet. The farmer doesn't know that unless he or she goes around and tests each area.
That can be.
Now there's some technology to help
They're very much
make
so.
better use of the resources of water and fertilizer and things like that. Tell us about some of those technologies. Did you bring some slides that'll help us see some of that?
Well, we did. We'll get those in a second, but if you don't mind, but the technology you're talking about is called remote sensing.
Yes.
And so remote sensing, and there are companies right here in Oregon that are really developing amazing remote sensors, and then there are national companies like John Deere and others that have remote sensor systems where you have a sensor in the ground and you have them all over the farm, and they're telling the farmer, how much moisture is present, what the temperature is, what the nitrogen level is, which is something that's very key for farming. And so, and now pushing that literally to your mobile phone and delivering it in a way that's actionable. You can actually look on your phone, and it's not just data, but it's actionable data. It's what people in the industry call a prescription. You've got a problem, so you need to, first you examine or sense, and then you diagnose, and then you prescribe the solution.
All right. So what is some of that technology? You think that our area could be a leader in
very much so
manufacturing this, using
very
it?
much so.
Both.
I do, and we're just waking up to that opportunity. Oregon has about over 220 specialty crops, high value crops. And so we're like a laboratory for the rest of the world that also grows these high value crops in different places. So we have a concentrated area with an incredibly rich growing environment. We have wonderful institutions like Oregon State University and the Extension program. We have cutting edge technology just over the hill from us, on the other side of the Chehalem Mountain, the whole kind of Intel complex, if you will, there. And so we have the technology and we have the great variety of crops. And we're starting to see some organic growth in companies that are popping up doing that type of work. But, we could do more with that.
All right. So there's an opportunity for us local people to learn more about that. There's a show coming up.
There is, and there's a couple of slides that I brought as well.
Okay.
So the first slide that I brought is an automated skidster, which is a small kind of tractor, or bobcat. People will know them if you say bobcat. Yeah, there it is right there. And so that's made by a company called Autonomous Solutions Incorporated, and they make basically robots out of existing equipment for farming, mining. They also do all the autonomizing for Ford Motor Corp. So when they test their trucks and they drive them at 60 miles an hour over that rumble strip, there's no person inside there because that's a tough environment. So now it's all automated, and there's a robot driving that, or a truck drives itself. So for farmers, one of the biggest challenges that farmers have is labor. It's just disappearing across the country. The combination of farmers retiring, consolidation, farms being bought by larger corporations, and then also just the fact that people aren't going into farming means that we need these types of automated solutions. And so we have a conference called the Precision Farming Expo. We put it on last year at Evergreen, and we're putting it on this year at the Salem Convention Center on March 17th and 18th. And we bring some of the top developers from around the world and thought leaders in precision agriculture, whether it's remote sensing, like say drones or in-ground sensors, or it's autonomy or automation, vehicles that drive themselves, or automated harvesting equipment, and then of course data, which is extremely important. Farmers are growing data now, and there's a lot of questions about who owns that data, but also how to use that data, make it as effective as possible.
March 17th and 18th.
Correct.
The Salem Convention Center.
Right.
General public is welcome.
They are welcome. The site is precisionfarmingexpo.com, and people are welcome to come and get a ticket there and learn really that kind of the future is now sort of thing. I mean, these things are happening right now, and we have a lot of participation from farmers. The concept of this expo is to bring farmers and technologists and policymakers together. So that they can develop these new technologies, in cooperation.
All right, and you brought another slide. Speaking of technology,
Sure.
let's see that
Yeah,
one.
I'd
I
love
think
to
this
see it
is
actually because it was a big deal to me. So this is a unmanned aerial vehicle. It's called a Hexacopter. It has six helicopter blades. And this was last summer in August. This vehicle was flying over a vineyard in Carlton with a sensor attached that looks down on the plants, in this case the vineyard, and it creates a vigor map. So it shows how healthy the entire vineyard is, plant by plant, row by row, so that when a farmer needs to go in and apply a treatment for something like powdery mildew, which is something that's very common here, problem for grape growers, you can know exactly where that powdery mildew is, and send in your folks to just treat that area and not treat the entire vineyard. So there's an environmental benefit and a cost benefit as well.
All right, great. That's the future there.
It certainly is the future.
All right, thanks for bringing that. You mentioned something when we were chatting before about vision for our area.
All right.
And you have a lot of ideas. There's a lot of ideas floating out there. You've put a lot of them across the table now. Do you see a repository, a place, a person, an agency, a commission that is a vision holder for us at this time?
No, we don't really have that right now. I mean, you know, most areas over the last 10 or 15 years since the big recession, what we've seen in economic development is we've seen the creation of economic development agencies for regions, which are typically supported by cities and you know, say county governments and even state grants, that sort of thing. And these economic development agencies tend to hold the vision, and they act on the vision. And so we don't have that currently here. We do have a regional economic development group called SEDCOR. They are primarily focused on manufacturing. And you know, you've gathered by now, I think that ag is the key, and I think ag tech is the key for us here, particularly in Yamhill County, which I'm very passionate about. Living here in Yamhill County and knowing that we have an enormous opportunity in front of us.
All right, so what I heard from you just now is that we have some people holding vision in some small areas, but as an overall vision of economic development in this region, we could use some organization around that.
Well, sure. I mean, there's always room for organization, and you know, like we have a really great economic development organization in McMinnville. You know, MEDP, McMinnville Economic Development Partnership, and is very well led and is very effective. And it's part of the reason why it's so effective is because it's very focused. And in this case, it's focused on manufacturing, and so it does a great job of recruiting new manufacturers to the area. And the organization all does a great job of, through a really innovative internship program, training the employees, the future employees for those new companies and existing companies. But agriculture is in our DNA. You know, agriculture is what we truly are. And agriculture, agri-tech crosses 5 sectors, crosses manufacturing, education, services, agriculture itself, and high-tech data. And you know, software development, things like that. And that's why I'm so keen on it, because you know, with limited resources, you need to, you know, the choices that you make matter as far as the investments that you're going to put forward, and you should try to do something that is going to be as effective for the entire economy as a whole as possible.
All right. Well, that's a great challenge. I appreciate it, and I've heard you. And I want to go forward with this idea, and as I bring on Jody Christensen, head of the Economic Development Partnership, we'll talk more about that. Well, Jeff, we're out of time. The 15 minutes has just gone like that. Thanks so much for being here, being my first guest.
I'm very honored to be your first guest. That's really an honor. Thank you, Ken.
We've opened up a lot of great subjects that I want to pursue with other people too.
Super.
Thank you very much.
All right, best of luck to your shop.
All right, thank you. All right, well, thanks for being with us here on Local Matters. I'm your host, Ken Moore.